and I was not told ahead of time that this room was in the round. So all of you will have a not very attractive view of me at some point today, so I will apologize. And the best part is we're streaming live, so a lot more people are getting the best view today. So with that said, welcome. Today we're talking about growing data, and where we're starting is I'd like to share a slide with you. And I don't know if anybody in the room can guess what region this is. It took me about 20 minutes to figure it out. And this is actually a picture from my 16-year-old daughter's world history textbook. And this picture actually created a very unique dialogue that we had in my household. She took the picture and she showed it to me, and she said, "Mom, how long ago did this map exist?" And I said, "Well, honey, maps like this existed not that long ago. And about 10, 12 years ago, if you needed to go somewhere, if you needed to find something, you would use a map just like this to get there." And she about fell over. She looked at me and said, "Well, today I just use my phone, and that tells me everything I need to do. Siri tells me where I need to go, how I'm going to get there. How did you do this?" And I looked at her and I said, "Well, that's why I am wiser and older than you are." And when it made me really think about kind of data.com, and we talk about the right data at the right moment. And today I think we really take for granted that the right data is usually in our fingertips at the right moment. When we use a cell phone, we have all the information we need right there. Salesforce1 now brings us all that information that we need right there. But a very long time ago, we had to struggle and use maps like this to find our way and find the things we needed to do. So with that, my name is Beth Fitzpatrick. I'm a director of product marketing with data.com. I have been with data.com a little over 2 years, and prior to that, I spent about 15 years in the data industry. So I like to say I grew up in the data industry, and if you do the math, I have a 16-year-old daughter, 15 years in the data industry, you can kind of guess my age. I had a very big birthday recently. So with that said, before we really get started, I think everybody has seen Safe Harbor before, but what Safe Harbor is saying is it's saying that we may talk about things today that are forward-thinking, and we want to make sure that you don't make any buying decisions today on things that you hear in this room. And if you'd like to learn more about it, you can visit our website and learn more about Salesforce Safe Harbor. Also, just one housekeeping item. You've probably seen this as well, but we are giving away a Starbucks gift certificate for completed surveys. So if you can go ahead and take the survey before you leave today and give us feedback on the session, we'd love to hear it. So one of the things when we talk about the right data, when we talk to our customers, we find out that one of their biggest challenges is defining what right data means. How do you get to that right data? How do you know within your contacts who's been promoted? What companies are related? Do you have the right values? Do you have the right phone numbers, the right addresses, the right industry information? These are all questions that we have our customers struggling with daily, and they try to answer those questions. And they don't really know what the right data means until they create a benchmark or a baseline for what right data should be. What we've also found with our customers is that a lot of customers focus so heavily on their CRM, and they go ahead and they think about when they're deploying a new system, they think about things like workflow, they think about migration, they think about how they're going to deploy users, how they're going to train users, and data becomes an afterthought. And what normally happens with a customer that's deploying a new system is they just take the data from the old system and they move it right on over to the new system. They may do a quick cleanup or may try and do a little housekeeping before they do that, but 9 times out of 10, they just move that data over in the current state. And what they're doing is they're carrying those problems and issues that they had in their prior system over to their new system. One thing that we've learned, and we learned this from Forrester, and this is a great quote, and the reason I like this is because Forrester is coming to the market and they're saying, hey guys, data is at the center of your growth strategy. And if we listen to what Forrester says, they say that data is the raw material of everything firms do. But too many have been treating it like it was waste material. Something to deal with, something to report on, something that grows like bacteria in a petri dish. No more. Firms must invest heavily in building next-generation customer data management capabilities to grow revenue and profits in the age of the customer. And in essence, what Forrester is saying is they're saying customers need the right data at the right moment to grow their business, to drive their business, and take their company to the next level. And that's really where data.com comes in. We help our customers define, create, and build the right data inside their CRM and take them to the next level. Now, what I'd like to do is not just take my word for it, but I'd love for you to hear from Joe Morgan, who is the CEO of Standard Register. We're going to watch a short video where he talks about what he did with Standard Register and how they found their right data at the right moment.
You know, we made a choice to put the customer record in Salesforce. So that was a big move on our part. And then once you do that, now the data related to the customers can be more relevant because now we have one place to go. So really it was, okay, we say if it isn't in Salesforce, then it doesn't exist. Well, yeah, that's a great thing to say, but if you haven't actually done anything mechanically to ensure that's true, then you're not going to be successful. So that would be the main benefit. But I would also say that with data.com, we now have the ability to have a 360 view of the customer. The metaphor that I always use with our team on data is that it's a little bit like, you have God-given talents and then you have to work hard. And, some people just happen to be in the right spot at the right time. That would be the God-given talent. The other ones have to work really, really hard to take advantage of whatever situation they're in. I think data enables that. If we use data in the proper way, it's sort of like training for a marathon. We can be, there's no excuse for not being ready. So that's completely up to us. So I look at data as being an enormous enabler for our company because we're in the sweet spot of, we have 45% market share in healthcare, acute care health in our business. If we have the right data at the right time, we can accelerate the pace of execution with our customer. That's how I look at it. Financial services, we do business with 22 of the top 25 retail banks. If we have the right data at the right time, we can absolutely accelerate a business. The question is, it's not about data, it's about the right data.
So just out of curiosity, by quick show of hands, how many in here have the kind of mantra back at the office that says, if it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen? Couple, okay. I came from companies prior to working for Salesforce that had that, and they said, if it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. But one thing that Joe says that I really like is he says, but what does that really mean? If you say it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen, but does that mean an opportunity doesn't book? Does that mean a customer product isn't shipped? Does that mean an account isn't serviced? No, but what it means is all of those things become extremely difficult without the right data. And so the way that Joe really sums it up is he says, hey, we said this, and then we really put some skin in the game. We actually came in and said, how are we going to do this? And he actually took a methodical, prescriptive approach to taking Standard Register to the next level and taking them from an organization that had data to an organization that had the right data at the right moment and really transformed their business. So if we talk about good customer data or the right data, we all have data. We may have too much data. We may have too little data. We may have data that's dead. We may have data that's not useful. We may have very valuable data, but we have a hard time managing it. So when we talk about why good data is so hard to find, what does that mean to the business? So if we think about our sales organization, when we don't have good data, they waste a lot of time researching and looking at different tools and systems to find out information. We see that 21% of B2B sales representatives actually spend a large portion of their day researching rather than selling. And when you take salespeople out of the selling role, you lose revenue. We also find that a lot of customers struggle with being able to upload and integrate data into systems, whether it be data loader or flat files or trying to move data between integrations. Moving data from A to B can be very difficult. And what we found is that it's the #1 issue that customers complain about with their CRM is how do I get the data in there? And then once they get that data in there, how do they keep it clean? How do they keep it up to date? How do we know that it's current, relevant, actionable, and we can do something with that data? And these are the challenges that all of our customers are facing today. So when you talk about these sales and these challenges, what's interesting is if you think about it, they all tie to sales and marketing productivity. They all come back and say, are we selling enough? Are we marketing properly? Are we managing our customer base the way we should? And so when we are spending that time researching, when we are spending that time having to manually input data, when we are having to manually update data and it's not current, what does that mean? That means that we have a pipeline that's too small. It means that we have limited insights into our customers, and do we know who our best customers are? Do we know what they look like, who we should be selling to, who we should be targeting? And at the end of the day, we don't have enough time selling. And when our top salespeople are researching, that is a loss to the company. And if you look at what Ovum Research said that this equates to $700 billion of annual revenue loss due to bad data. And this is speaking straight to sales and marketing activities. This is telling you that today, our customers, those folks here in the room, that we are part of that number. We are wasting $700 billion a year because of bad data. So when we talk about how do we solve for that, or where do we start, is even a better issue. Because we can't just solve it. We have to start somewhere, we have to put a plan in place, and we have to make forward trajectory motions to actually change that. And so where do we start? Well, with data.com, we kind of start that process for you. We help put you on the right map to get you the right data at the right moment. And what does this mean? This means that data.com is built and designed for Salesforce. So when we talk about Salesforce, Salesforce is the most innovative CRM platform out there today. and we could not deliver a subpar data solution. So what Data.com does is Data.com is built natively inside of Salesforce so that it leverages the power of the platform. And we say power, we talk about triggers, we talk about workflow, we talk about data dependencies, we talk about how you use data across Salesforce and how you make it actionable, how you make it insightful, and how you make it intelligent. We then talk about what is the best data, because you'll hear that Data.com is the #1 sales app, the #1 data tool available, but why? Why is Data.com better than anybody else out there? It's very simple. It's because we have the best-in-class data available, delivered right inside of CRM. And when I say best-in-class, that means that we not only deliver the D&B account data, we also deliver the Connect asset. And what the Connect asset is that is a premium jigsaw contact asset, and it delivers contact data that are 100% complete. When we say 100% complete, that means they have a name, a title, a phone number, an email, and an address, all available inside of your CRM, making marketing activities a lot easier. When we talk about D&B data, D&B is by far the gold standard in the business industry when it comes to data. They're a name that probably everybody in this room is familiar with, and that's because they bring 170 years of data experience to the table. They deliver global data on over 200 countries with over 233 million records. And what this is doing is this is telling you all of those companies you want to target. Where are they located? What industries are they in? How do you market to them? What is their revenue? What are their sales figures? It delivers a wealth of data right inside of your CRM. And so when we talk about the value of Data.com, what we really want to talk about is how does it benefit customers today? And what we found when we're talking to customers is there are 6 common use cases that we see most in the market. These are the 6 things that I would think that everybody in this room probably would agree with this is something you struggle with. So just by a show of hands, I want to walk through a couple quick use cases before we actually walk into a little bit more of a demo. So first off, when we talk about prospecting and targeting new accounts, when we talk to our customers, they say, we have a very hard time identifying the right type of prospects we should be targeting. We think we know what our footprint is. We think we know where we can find these folks. But at the end of the day, we're spending too much time wasting hours trying to identify who they are. So does anybody in the room struggle with actually finding prospects and target accounts? Okay, that's a pretty good amount. Next issue that we see a lot with customers is white space analysis. When we talk about white space, it says, hey, we're doing business with a company, but do we really understand that company? Do we understand how large that company is? How many family members do they have? Do we understand what our upsell and cross-sell potential is? We know they're buying product A, but do they have an appetite for product B? Or we know that location 1 and 3 are buying, but does location 4, 7, 9, and 10 also have a need for our product? And if so, how do we identify those folks and make contact? So does anybody else have issues with the white space, trying to understand who your customers are and who their potential, good, got a few. Market analysis and customer segmentation. We have a lot of customers that say, we think our best industry is manufacturing, but we really don't know. And we don't know because we don't have enough data about our customers to be able to really extract out who our best customers are. So when we talk about market segmentation and market analysis and segmentation, we're talking about look at this universe of all of your customers and be able to identify what are the common attributes. What is my sweet spot? Who is buying from us the most? What employee size? What geography? What areas are we most successful in? Does anybody have trouble being able to uncover this information? Okay. And then we talk about territory planning and alignment. We deal a lot with sales ops folks, and those sales ops folks tend to say, hey, we know that we really need to be building territories and segmenting our customer base better, but we don't have the insight. We don't have the information. We try to do it in Salesforce, but it becomes very difficult. Any sales ops folks in the room that have trouble with territory alignment, segmentation? Perfect. And then one of my favorites, lead scoring and routing. Customers are constantly challenged with, hey, we work with leads. We use lead records. We bring them into our system, but we can't invoke our lead routing rules because we don't have enough data on the record. We route it to the wrong sales rep. We route it to the wrong geography. How do we be more effective? And we create these leads in our system, and we really need to route them effectively. So anybody have issues with lead routing? Not having enough data on your leads to actually route? Perfect. And then revenue roll-ups. This can be a finance issue. This can be a sales issue. But at the end of the day, do you really know who's buying? Do you know what segments it is that are buying? Do you understand if you could take a quick bird's eye glance at your revenue? Where is your most revenue coming from? What is your most profitable segment? Can anybody easily have any issues easily accessing their revenue on their customers? Perfect. So what I want to do is I want to now take a quick second. I'd like to bring up a colleague of mine, Tom Wright. Tom is one of our senior Data.com specialists. And Tom is actually going to walk us through each of these 6 use cases in Data.com and show you how our customers are using it today. So Tom, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Sure, great. Thanks, Beth. Good afternoon. My name's Tom Wright. I'm a data product specialist and want to do a quick exercise with everyone before we get into a demo. So everyone do me a favor, stick out both your hands for me just like this. Come on, it's going to be fun. All right, now what I just want to do for me, take both your thumbs and face them towards the ground so your hands are sticking out. All right, wonderful. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your right hand, put it over your left hand, and lock your fingers in place, just like that. Lock your fingers in place. Now, with your hands locked together, see if everyone can do this, okay? So can everyone move your pinky fingers? Everybody move your pinky fingers. Very good, perfect. Now with your hands locked together, can everyone move your thumbs? Can everyone move your thumbs? All right, perfect. Now here's the last but the most tricky part, okay? With your hands locked together, can everyone do this? Okay, that part takes a little bit more practice. Okay, good. So the reason I wanted to show you that exercise is data is a lot like what you just experienced. It can seem very complicated and you can almost feel trapped, but I'm going to let you in on the secret. I'm going to tell you how I did it, okay? So everybody do it. Once again, take your hands, stick them out, put your thumbs towards the ground, take your right hand, put it over your left hand, lock your fingers in place. Now here's what I did. As my hands were locked in place, I pulled out this hand and I pointed to that gentleman over there, but instead of putting it back to the right place, I put it back the opposite way. So as you guys were paying attention to that jumbled mess in front of you and trying to figure out the problem, I had a right solution and I had a secret no one saw it. So data can take something that looks like this, and if you have the right solution and if you know the secret, you can turn something like this into something like this. Now, what's the solution? Well, that's what we're going to demo today and show you based on these 6 use cases.
Thank you, Tom. So for those of you, a little fun fact about Tom, besides being one of our lead data.com specialists, he also is a magician by trade. So he's available for birthday parties, weddings, bar mitzvahs. Just see him at the end, he's all yours. So with that being said, Tom, let's jump back to the first use case. And so we were talking earlier about prospecting. And we were asked the folks in the room, how many struggle with just finding the right prospects, the right people to target? Is this something that you deal with customers on frequently?
Something I speak to customers about every day. And one of the biggest things, a great example is Career Builder, a great Chicago company based here. Their sales reps were wasting about 4 hours per rep per week because they didn't have the right information to prospect. They were going to the phone book, website, all this information just to find the right people. But then they found data.com, and it significantly saved us tons of time, lots more pipelines being generated. And let me show you how they did that here. So data.com is a native tool. It's integrated within your Salesforce. So this is not an app exchange tool or
So for those of you, real quick, sorry, Tom,
sure,
for those of you that are looking over here wondering what's going on, behind you over there and on this screen we've got the demo.
There we go.
So I just saw a few heads. Yeah.
If you turn around here,
yeah.
Perfect. So what we're showing here is what I have saved a search before our meeting here today. And what I just did is I quickly built a search. I wanted to find contacts in a specific location. So I was looking for a specific zip code. Data.com is doing a fuzzy search on any contact within the 94, fill in the blank from there, 94000, 94001. Furthermore, using the industry codes, I'm using the NAICS industry code, I'm able to drill down on a specific industry that makes sense to exactly what I'm looking for. And I can make that as specific and drill down as teeny tiny or as wide out as I want to. And once I run my search, I come back with this. Complete contact information. Beth mentioned every single contact has a name, has a specific, or what we call business card title. Every contact has a phone number. Most of the phone numbers we have are a direct dial. Every phone number, every contact has a business email address. So now reps can quickly find a contact based on a key title that interests them. And furthermore, on the left, we can filter down and get even more specific. Well, this is great. I've got IT managers, but I want IT people, not a manager, but I want to find a director or a VP level. Or furthermore, I want to find IT people that are companies of a certain employee size or certain revenue size. And really quickly with the data.com integrated nature, I can take a contact, I can select it with one click, I can choose to add it to Salesforce as a lead and contact and bring it right in. And that's a great example of how we can help prospecting.
Great. I think one thing that's really interesting here too, Tom, that we want to make sure, I think a lot of customers really focus on is they'll come to us and say, well, this is great, but guess what? My territory is London, or my territory is France or Italy, and they say, hey, can you support that territory? And that's really where we see the power of the D&B data. This is where we have the D&B full file, as I mentioned earlier, and what that means is we have 233 million plus records available. So no matter what your footprint is, no matter what your territory is, you're going to find businesses out there that are applicable for your sales folks to be marketing to. So Tom, if we talk about the next use case, we had some hands go up when we talked about white space. And white space obviously meaning that, hey, I have customers, but I need to know more about them. I need to know who's related to those customers. I need to understand who's buying and who's not buying. Who should I be targeting for upsell and cross-sell? So when we talk about that, how do customers do that in data.com?
It's really interesting because usually these are for customers that have named account strategies. Hey, I already know who my customers are today, but we're trying to drive top-line revenue within those existing customers, whether these are key accounts or national accounts. So an example you see here is we have Walgreens. We have a Walgreens account, but we need to find if there's additional decision-making locations at Walgreens that we're not doing business with today. So one of the things we have with data.com is what's called a D&B company. This is using the global hierarchy from D&B. And by clicking on Walgreens here, this takes me to another integrated tab, D&B companies, where I can quickly click on this button right here. It says search via global ultimate DUNS. And when I click on that button, what happens now, data.com is going out using our partner D&B to find all the additional locations that roll up to Walgreens. So as you can see here, we have our headquarters locations, our branch locations, our what we call single locations or subsidiaries, and now we're seeing, wow, drugstore.com. I didn't know they were owned by Walgreens. Let's go and speak to them and have a conversation, because how much easier now can we have a conversation with a drugstore if we already have Walgreens doing business with us today? And furthermore, we can filter down those locations via revenue size, whether we're looking for something in Canada, the US, a specific state, using that global hierarchy. And then furthermore, we can end up with this. This is what we'll call a white space report. A lot of executive sales management really finds this a big priority for them, because the example what I have here is PepsiCo. We're doing business with PepsiCo, and what this report does, this is a report that you can easily build. This is taking any closed and won opportunities you have within an account. It's adding it in with the global hierarchy information from Dun & Bradstreet, and it's showing us, wow, well, we have $840,000 in business closed with PepsiCo, but because of the global hierarchy, we don't have any business with Frito-Lay today. Let's find the Pepsi team, let's get a relationship and get a meeting started, and this is a great way to increase white space cross-sell, upsell.
Great, thanks, Tom. So this is really showing us, hey, I have a current customer. I want to understand the size of the customer, the opportunity, what other buying locations are out there. But if we think about customers that actually care more, also care about who are my customers today? Can you help me understand what my landscape looks like? What industries am I successful in? What revenue bands do I have that I sell into? What areas of the country am I most successful in? When they're really looking for that segmentation and that analytics, how do we solve for that for customers?
Sure. This is actually a newer thing I'm hearing about from customers. You know, it's more than just about prospecting and finding new business, but it's about, Tom, how do we know more about who our current customers are and who our prospective customers are, and how can we now make data-driven decisions to actually have more insight onto that? Marketing now wants to know what's our market share by segment, by industry, and do we need to spend more time in certain industries? So what we're seeing here is actually a report that gives us that detailed analytics. As I mentioned before, making data-driven decisions. And what this is doing is this is now telling us, here's our top 10 customers by industry. We can see by share and segment how much business those customers are doing with us today. Hey, who are our top customers here by sales volume, by employee size? So now when someone's knowing, you know, we primarily do business with mid-market customers or small business customers or Fortune 100, who are those customers? We now have this insight, all because of the information that's coming in from D&B, and we can filter down, know who our customers are, spend time focusing on that, and make data-driven decisions to drive new business.
We've now put this intel in our customers' hands. We've shown them, here are your most profitable segments. Here's how you can segment and analyze your database. But if we take it kind of a step deeper and we talk about our sales ops folks, our sales ops folks are the folks out there that are consistently trying to create those territories. They're trying to ensure that they have fair alignment in how they spread out the territories for their sales folks. So when we talk about the sales ops buyer, Tom, how does data.com benefit a sales ops person?
It's really interesting you said that. I actually had a great conversation with the VP of Sales Ops yesterday, and he had a problem. He had a lot of new salespeople coming on board that didn't have an established book of business. The veteran reps are doing great. They had no problem. But most of the reps he had, these were new reps, and the problem was getting these new reps onboarded quickly, getting them successful, so we're lowering attrition rates. He didn't know what to do. So what we showed him here is the ability with data.com to actually go out and build out new companies based on key locations. What we're showing him is, for example, a new rep has Chicago 4 accounts. And what he's able to do now is go and able to find additional accounts within Chicago and be able to find out, okay, what are all the accounts that we don't have in Salesforce today that are in Chicago that would make sense for this rep? Let me select these accounts and bring them into Salesforce. He wanted also to even out how many accounts every rep had. Every rep needs to have around 150 accounts, and so he was able to go in here and supplement with D&B information to make sure every rep had a right amount of territory, the right accounts to start right out of the gate.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Next use case we wanted to focus on was really about lead data. And when we talk about lead data, we're not just talking about data that's being used in lead systems in the Pardots of the world, but we're also talking about rounding out lead forms. How do you provide more data on lead records to make them actionable? How do you round those lead forms out and provide valuable data that optimizes lead routing and lead scoring? And so, Tom, for a marketer in the room, how would data.com really benefit them when it comes to the lead process?
Sure. The biggest thing for marketers is getting additional firmographic information that you may not request for on a web-to-lead form or when someone calls into your contact center. Lots of times we're asking for the basic stuff like phone number, email, address, but things like, what's your employee size? Are you considered a small business? Where else do you do business? How many companies do you own? How many employees are at this location versus another location? People don't know that, and the more fields you require, the fewer and fewer people that are going to fill out your forms. Great marketing automation tool provider says that if we actually cut down the required fields in a web-to-lead form from 9 fields down to 4 fields, we increase lead conversion rates by 3.4%. Imagine what that can do for your company based on whatever the average value of a lead is. And over here, there's over 83 different fields of data that we can append to your leads, whether that's location type, out of business, second, third, fourth, SIC code, the global hierarchy, all this additional information we can append into a lead. For example, here, we have Darren. We're missing some key pieces of information. We don't have a phone. We have a basic title. Data.com, whether on a manual basis or a clean basis, can automatically go in, fill in all these additional fields instantly for you. So now we can route those leads to the right group, the right person, compared to Joe in small business working as Zappos lead when it should go to a different account.
Perfect. And I think about customers that come to us and they say, we have all these lead routing rules, but we consistently have problems with our leads going to the wrong folks because we don't have the right data in our systems to be able to route these leads effectively. And so what we're seeing here is really that having all of this valuable data available, it optimizes that lead process and it gets those sales closed in a shorter amount of time. And Tom, if we talk about the last one, revenue roll-up. And revenue roll-up, I think, is important because it touches not just our sales and our marketing folks, but it touches our financial folks. And it really helps them understand where are we most profitable as a company and where are we seeing the biggest bang, where are we reaching the most folks, who are our best customers. So if we talk about revenue roll-up, what kind of conversations have you had around that?
It's really interesting. Revenue roll-up, I was actually having a conversation with the CFO. I normally never talk to people in the finance space, but the CFO, he worked at a company that's owned by a private equity firm. And the private equity firm wanted to know who are your top customers and how much revenue are those customers doing business with you today, and if you lost 1 or 2 of those customers, what type of impact would that be on the business? And he had no idea. So I showed him here via report, we can actually now, using the D&B global hierarchy, actually see who your top customers are by segment, by the global ultimate name, and how much business they're doing with you today. The CFO called it a CFO's dream. He was so excited. I've never seen a CFO get so excited. It's kind of funny, but he was so excited now he has this information on who their top customers are by revenue, and furthermore, using the D&B delinquency risk, he's now able to know more about his customers from an accounts receivable standpoint and a risk mitigation standpoint. Who are our customers by low risk of delinquency, medium or high, and now make business decisions on how to do business with those customers based on that information.
Great. Thanks, Tom. So these are 6 key use cases. These are not all the use cases that we have, but these are 6 key use cases that when we talk to customers day in and day out, these are the 6 things that we hear most. How do we find more prospects? How do we find better prospects? How do we understand who our customers are and the white space? What opportunity are we missing out on? How do I segment and analyze my customer base better? How do I drive more visibility into my revenue? How do I optimize my lead routing and lead scoring process? And then how do I better align my territories? So again, 6 use cases that we focused on today. There's a lot more, but this is where we see most of our customers coming to us and asking us for help. So with that, I would actually like to invite Debbie Hart up from Ryerson. Debbie is a key customer here in the Chicago region, so come on up to the center ring here. Now you can enjoy all the fun I'm having, yeah. So Debbie, first of all, thanks for joining us today. If you wouldn't mind, would you give us just a quick introduction about yourself, Ryerson, your role?
Sure, thanks. Thanks for having me. So Ryerson is a very large metal distribution company headquartered right here in Chicago. We provide metal that goes into large industrial machines all the way down to small appliances. We've been around for 172 years and have over 100 locations throughout the world in the US, Canada, Mexico, and China. I'm the application manager for over 1,000 users, primarily salespeople.
Perfect, great. So we know a little bit about Ryerson, but can you also tell us, you've been a Data.com customer now for a while, and a Salesforce customer for even longer, but would love to hear a little bit about what was life like for you and your team prior to Data.com?
Sure. We've been using Salesforce for about 2.5 years, Data.com for almost 1.5 years, and we had an integrated tool called Access Hoovers that we used prior to signing up for Data.com, and that did the trick for keeping our basic company information current. But however, we're in an extremely mature industry, so it's very unlikely that we're going to find another $30 or $50 million customer out there. We pretty much know who our major metal consumers are. Now, the idea of contact information is a completely different story. A lot of our contact data was incomplete and very stale and outdated. So the idea of being able to find new people and refresh the records that we have, find new people that we can contact at our customers, was really what put us over the edge.
Great. So being that you were somewhat of an Access Hoovers migration, that really means that you were already set up for success in that you had adopted the whole DUNS model. You understood the value of the DMD data, which makes a great segue into Data.com. But if you were to actually pretty much summarize the top 3 things that Ryerson has recognized since deploying Data.com, what would those be?
Well, I already mentioned contact information. We have call center reps that are calling on dormant or undersold accounts. So the fact that they could just click on that Get Contacts button and find the people that they need to be making their calls to really saves a lot of time. Secondly, I think we're trying to standardize our process for prospecting. We've given access for prospecting to key individuals in our company, so we're hoping to have a tighter control over the way we conduct our marketing initiatives based on different locations. And third, I would say the clean function, knowing that our SIC codes and NAICS codes are updated, really allows us to be able to better segment our existing customer base and then query to find similar customers that we may not be hitting.
Great. So it sounds like when you migrated over, you first had a benefit with enriched, kind of deeper contact data. You were able to actually kind of streamline initiatives, access, and really provide more power to your users. And then lastly, you kept the data clean. So you have real-time cleaning going on behind the scenes so that the data was up to date, fresh, and accessible in the system.
Exactly.
Perfect. So today we're really talking about the right data at the right moment. That's the tagline for the session. That's really what Data.com delivers to the market. How would you kind of define that in the world of Ryerson? What is the right data at the right moment for Ryerson?
Well, like I said, I think we're very dependent on SIC and NAICS codes. So knowing that we have the DUNS right match, that the information is getting updated on an automatic basis, that really allows us to better segment our existing customers, and then, like I said, query Data.com to then find some possible additional prospects.
Great. And so by DUNS right match, and that means that you're really taking the value and the power of what DMB has built out with their matching that's now available in Data.com. So you can actually take the methodology that they've built, leverage it in Data.com, and ensure you've got a strong matching engine working inside.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yep. So hindsight is always 20/20, and I always like to ask this question and be very honest. If you could do anything differently, what would you do? And it's just between us in the room and about, 5,000 people watching out there. So
I think my biggest challenge is making sure that the right people have the right access. When we signed up for data.com, we were very intentional in limiting the number of licenses we had. We know that it's a very powerful tool. We didn't want everybody to be doing all these queries in all these different directions. We've added and grown our business. We've added some different functions in the Ryerson structure. And so now it's really tricky for me to balance who has access, and I think knowing ahead where we were going probably would have helped us a little bit. But now I'm sitting back and I'm reevaluating how we're allocating the licenses, and hopefully we'll be making some improvements.
And it's funny you say that, because that's somewhat of a common answer, in that customers will say, hey, when we bought data.com, we really looked at it from a very siloed or singular focus. We thought, oh, this is great for sales ops, so this is great for our data folks. And then once they deployed, they had sales folks, they had marketing, they had all these other teams and departments coming in and saying, hey, we want access too. And so it really made the buying process a little bit more difficult because they weren't invested early on. So it sounds like you would have somewhat of a similar approach, just, hey, if you're looking at data.com, think of it from an enterprise perspective, not just a siloed perspective, because there is benefit beyond just the immediate groups.
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you, Debbie. I'd love to have you stick around for questions in a couple minutes here. So as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to summarize a few of the things we've talked about today and the things that we've heard. So data.com is truly a foundation for CRM success. And we have so many customers that tell us, we bought Salesforce, we know we have the best CRM out there, but we still have issues with adoption, and we still have issues with being able to take action out of our CRM. And it all really comes down to the data that's inside of that CRM. And so when we talk about data.com, we're talking about the right data at the right moment. And what that means is the best business-to-business customer data. That's the D&B global asset of those 233 million global records, combined with the Connect asset of those 100% complete contact records provided for you inside of Salesforce. It's the built natively function that's available with data.com. It means that data.com sits inside of Salesforce. It is natively built, which allows you to have, again, that power of the platform, the workflow, the triggers, everything that you need to do with inside Salesforce. This data is now accessible across that platform. And lastly, as Debbie was talking about, it's that real-time clean. It's saying, hey, we've got a whole lot of CRM data, and it is constantly changing. We are constantly having our data out of date, and we have to find a way to keep it clean. We have to get ahead of that curve. We have to be able to be in front of our data so that we can manage change, and it can not affect our business. So I would like to then quickly throw up just a couple little follow-up items that we have. So we have an ebook out there, and it's the Grow with the Right Data Strategy. And this is an ebook that we published late last year, and it really speaks to how a company can actually go out and build a data strategy. One of the things we talk to customers about is they talk about data problems, they talk about data.com, but at the end of the day, you can buy data.com and it's not going to solve all your problems. As much as we would like to tell you it will, it won't. At the end of the day, a data strategy is a key foundational element to CRM success. And by data strategy, we're talking about not just data acquisition, we're talking about data management, data flows, data integration, data access, data usage. We're talking about a whole host of how your data is managed and used. And what this ebook is going to share with you is a different approach to how our customers today are really understanding how data drives their business and how they can create that data strategy. We also have a clean assessment that's available. It's a free assessment out on the App Exchange, and you can go out to App Exchange, search the data.com clean assessment. And what this does is it essentially runs within your org, and it will go in and it will look at all of your contact, your account, and your lead data, and it's going to go through it. It's going to attempt to match all of that data. And it's going to provide back a report on how much of that data we were able to match against data.com. It's going to tell you the quality of your data. It's going to let you know where your gaps are and where your data inconsistencies are. And it's a great tool to be able to help you kind of start that data strategy conversation. And then lastly, as always, contact your Salesforce account executive. We have folks like Tom Wright who are attached to all of the Salesforce AEs, and they're there to help you and really help you start having those conversations around data and data strategy. So with that, I want to thank you. I want to open it up to questions, and I also want to let you know that we will stick around outside the room as we are kindly escorted out for the next session. So feel free, any questions, we've got about a minute or two that we can answer now, and then we'll hang around for the end. So do we have any questions before we wrap up? Great. Well, I think with that, thank you again for coming, and Tom, Debbie, and myself will be available right outside.